Hi, good evening, and welcome to my daily live session on various topics for execution excellence. My name is Dinakar. I am the founder of Samutana and the inventor of Do a methodology for achieving amazing outcomes, challenging goals. By doing so, one would acquire leadership skills by changing their mindset and culture, and management skills by progressing on the journey towards smart manufacturing. That's a very brief introduction of what I do. And with that, let me directly jump into today's topic, which is about the people cycle of smart manufacturing. And before that, I invite you to visit our website, dinakarmurthy.com, in case you want to know more. Otherwise, write an email to me. Dinakar@samutana.com is my email address. With that very brief introduction, let us directly jump into the topic of the day, which is smart manufacturing and the people cycle of smart manufacturing. And before I go, let me just add a pointer here so that it becomes easy for me to show the pen, or maybe a pointer would be a better thing. Ink color, we'll select red. Pointer settings, laser pointer, then pointer options, ink color, we will select red color. Okay, so uh, first is we talked about the I've been speaking about the various topics in terms of smart manufacturing. And first of all, let me start by giving a very brief intro into what smart manufacturing is all about. It's about using hardware and software technology for assisting to fully managing repetitive tasks within an environment or ambience, wherein there are four phases, which is control, actuate, sense, and correct. Control or plan phase, which is about creating an algorithm. Actuate, or the do phase, is about giving a signal so that some action happens, some activity is done. Sensing is about finding out what happened after actuating and performing that action. And correction is about finding out what was the difference between the intended outcome and the actual outcome, and the gap there to be adjusted in the algorithm. That's the cycle, the fundamental control cycle, and that is the foundation of smart manufacturing. With that, I've been talking about various cycles in smart manufacturing, starting from product cycle, process, people, and this week I've been talking about the people cycle, again where smartness can be introduced. So let me now get into the people cycle of smart manufacturing. I spoke about the people strategy and planning on Monday. Then I spoke about recruitment and training on Tuesday, and today, Wednesday, I'll be talking about the learning curve. What I mean by learning curve. See, once the people strategy is in place and recruitment training has been done, then it is important that people come up to some level of productivity, or some level of efficiency, or some level of skill wherein they can perform the task without any difficulty. And to be doing that, there are multiple ways of finding it out, and this can be plotted along the time, where you call it as a learning curve. It could be, let us say, the output, for example, in one of the companies where there was a tremendous amount of manual work involved, which involved a lot of skill. It's a factory which had used to employ close to about 300 to 400 people in one shift, in one hangar. So like that, they had multiple factories, close to about 8,000 people employed. Everything is manual, where they have to learn the skill. Skill would be basically moving the hands in a particular fashion, which would then give them the required output. And to be able to learn that skill and get the entire thing into your subconscious, it is important to really make sure that the learning happens at a subconscious level. Only then can it be internalized, so that it becomes a very, very seamlessly good activity, and the skill is attained to its perfection. And to be able to verify whether that is attained or not is the activity that we are doing now. Now we are talking about the sensing cycle, or the sensing phase of the people cycle, which is all about finding out the cycle time variation. That's a very, very important aspect when you are looking at manual operations, or where some amount of assembly activity is involved, or some amount of movement is required, some amount of skill is required. More variation you have in cycle to cycle means that it is being done consciously. It's like driving a car. The time you take to press the clutch, then accelerate, as you release the clutch is something which happens naturally once you have understood how to drive the car, and that happens at the same time. Every time you do it, it will be identical, same time it will be, because it is managed by the subconscious mind. Moment it comes to the conscious mind, where you're trying to leave the clutch and thinking how much it has to come out, and then pressing the pedal, and that cycle will not be consistent, it will not be repetitive. Similarly, when you're trying to write your alphabets, let us say you want to write a 10 times, every time you write a, it will be the same speed, same time. If you have to write a to z, you would be writing it with the same speed, same what should I say, quality of writing, because that's again mainly controlled by the subconscious, the muscle memory it is. So wherever it is something which is trained by the subconscious, which is what the final objective is, to be able to work in the zone, one needs to really monitor the cycle time. And this cycle time variation can be monitored online using technology, wherein one could really look at the possible ways of doing it. I think there is somebody calling me up. I need to send SMS to them. So sorry for that. That was one of my clients whom I had to visit tomorrow. So I wanted to check up with him if it's possible or not. So I had called him up. He called back, and so I need to call him back later. So now that's the whole idea. And here I spoken about a company called as Drishti. I think it was yesterday, where you could videograph the entire cycle and then keep on monitoring the entire cycle, and then tag them and divide them into each elemental activities of the cycle. And there you can do cycle time variation monitoring very easily for a manual activity. Otherwise, one could use videography, and then after that check in the videos as to what the time was, or one could simply use a stopwatch method to find out what is the variation in cycle time. In fact, when you do rating for while doing the time study, that's another interesting concept. More the variation, lesser is the efficiency, lesser is the rating of the employee. Lesser the variation, higher is the rating. Rating basically defines how well is that employee skilled to do that particular activity. So that's again something which is what can be done, and for this again smartness can be used. Like I said, the ultimate is Drishti. Otherwise, there are multiple layers in between that to the point of measuring using a stopwatch, and then checking the variations on a Excel sheet or whatever. Then the next thing which is very important is to monitor the utilization and efficiency. What is it? Utilization is how many hours is the person being actually utilized, or the resource being utilized. Let's talk about resource. A resource could be a machine, resource could be a man. In this case, we're talking about a man. How is the utilization is how much time is the resource being utilized. That means how much amount of workload. Let us say if you've got 8 hours of time to work, and how many hours is the resource working. That is utilization. What is efficiency? Efficiency is how much amount of output is coming in that 8 hours. In the 8 hours, let us say the standard output would have been 100, and the person gave you 90, then the efficiency is 90%, and the number of hours worked was 6 in 8 hours. It would be somewhere around 7.5 hours of 75% utilization and 90% efficiency. So actually the final end effective efficiency, utilization, or effectiveness of that particular employee will be 0.75 into 0.9, which would be somewhere around 60, how much is it? 67.5%. So that would be the number that you would have in case you're talking about the utilization monitoring. And this again can be done using technology, where cameras can be used to find out how much amount of time the actual person is working. Or one could also use the RFID system, where RFIDs are part of the employee identification tags, and that can be used to touch base and then register whenever the person is starting the work, and again registering when the person stops the work, and that can also be used for calculating the utilization. Efficiency again can be calculated based on the cycle time and the output that has been generated. In fact, in one company where they're having a huge variety, the amount of variety of items that they do is phenomenal. They have almost 36,000 different SKUs, and every day they are handling close to about 120 SKUs, which have got multiple materials going into it, and all the materials look alike, and it's a very interesting technology, and the industry, I don't want to name the industry nor the company for confidentiality reasons. So multiple materials come in, and then all the materials look the same, but only the composition is different, because chemically they are different. And this entire thing is managed using a superb traceability system where the efficiency is monitored, utilization is monitored, and the correct mix is monitored. There are a lot of what should I say, barcode scanners which are used for picking up the right material and confirming that you have picked up the right material, because there are doors which would open only when that particular barcode is scanned. Depending on the materials to be picked up, they've got multiple boxes there. Depending on the material to be picked up in the sequence, it also cannot be picked up in some sequence. Only in that sequence, only that particular door will open, and from that door, you have to pick up that material. When you pick up the material, it registers that the material has been picked up. Then it would close the door and confirm by the with the RFID of the operator, so you know who has picked it up, and then the next door gets open. So it's a very interesting, and that has to be then transferred to another container, which again gets weighed. So you know that it got transferred from that container to this container. Of course, there is a possibility of somebody picking up material A and then putting material B into the container. That would be some kind of camouflage, and that gets caught very easily through the webcams. So it's not easy at all. So that kind of a monitoring is possible to ensure that the utilization and efficiency is monitored. Then the next one is manpower flexibility. What do you mean by manpower flexibility? It's something which is very interesting. See, I think many of you would have heard of the skill matrix. Skill matrix basically describes, it's a matrix with rows indicating the names of the operators and the columns indicating the various types of workstations or the workplaces or the machines which the company has for operation. Now, in each case, you would basically put a X or a Y or a B or a C, 1, 2, 3, whatever be the code you have got to indicate the level of expertise of that particular operator in that particular machine. And that's the skill matrix. When I talk about manpower flexibility, see, we have in any supply chain critical constraints which are there in the supply chain, or there could be bottlenecks. So for these constraints and bottlenecks, it is mandatory that you would have additional manpower trained. And in my wisdom, in any shift, there should be at least 2 people additional to the regular operator trained on the particular constraint or a bottleneck. Because in case of absenteeism, in case of XYZ exigency, if it is the constraint, I would even go to maybe 4 or 5, because if it is only one operation, then you would have to go to 3 or 4, because if all the 3 are absent, then you can't run that machine. Otherwise, you can run still run that particular machine. So therefore, that flexibility is a factor between the number of machines you have got and the number of workplaces you have got and number of people who are trained to work in that machine, in that particular workplace. It could be a factor of 4, factor of 5, factor of 1.5. If suppose, for example, we had a situation where we had calibration benches in Bosch, and these calibration benches were extremely critical because it was a highly skilled job, because you need to really look at the outcome, look at the final results from the functional results of the particular product, and based on that, some sleeves or some screws have to be tapped, and the tapping was really very, very critical, because that is the one which would define the positional shift, and that shift would then indicate create a change in the final delivery. So therefore, the tapping was very, very highly skilled. So you could not really put a fresher to do the job. It was very skilled operation. Therefore, we had about 30 odd benches, for example. So there a factor of 1.5 was sufficient, because 30 benches and then we have 45 people trained. The probability of 15 people from the same group abstaining on a particular day is very low. Therefore, 1.5 factor was good. If suppose it's only one constraint, one-off machine, then maybe we need to have 5 people trained, because there could be attrition, there could be people abstaining, and that's the flexibility monitoring which has to be done, and that also can be done using technology. Then the final one is the training effectiveness monitoring, and this again is done typically using the PRMS, the PMS system, performance management system, wherein during the appraisals, people generally define how has been the training effectiveness. But I for one believe that training effectiveness monitoring has to be done more closely at a much more frequency than once a year or once in a quarter. And that needs to be done immediately after the training. And for that, again, there are fantastic LMS systems available where the training effectiveness will be monitored based on the outcome which is desired, intended. Let us say you did a training program on SPC because you wanted to implement SPC. Now, the number of SPC stations implemented or the improvement in the process capability which leads to reduction in defects So defect reduction has a direct impact on the training done in HPCs. Therefore, the defect monitoring would result that has to improve. Otherwise, there is no point in having trained HPC. For example, somebody went to the training on design thinking, which meant that one has to either come up with new projects, new improvement projects, or one has to be talking about new product versions because of the design thinking workshop that somebody attended. Then now you track the improvement projects that you did in the company after design thinking and before design thinking, and find out if it makes any sense in it makes any what should I say sense having sent people for training on design thinking. And that kind of a correlation can be established only through big data, only through analytics, and that can be done using smart manufacturing or smart concepts. So these are the four areas where one could really look at smartness for sensing the people cycle. With that, I come to the end of today's live session. Tomorrow, I'm going to be talking about the correction of the people cycle, where we've got multiple topics again, which is uh, must and want skills, skill competency mapping, new competencies, competency and job matching. These are all the outcomes of whatever we did till now, and that I will be talking about tomorrow. Till then, see you tomorrow at 8:30 in the evening. For those of you in India, have a nice evening. For those of you outside India, have a great day ahead, and goodbye. Let's meet up tomorrow again. And in the meantime, I want to say that now I've been working on a solution for individual activity. Till now, we have been only doing with companies. I'm coming up with ideas as to how we can do individual sessions for individuals who want to become great leaders, exceptional leaders, as I call them as. So that I would be releasing shortly, and please stay in and get the information and reap the benefit out of that. Thanks a lot, and goodbye.